Hey, welcome everybody to my couple episodes long playthrough of Clockwork Empires as it stands in Beta 51B. So this is still the main stable branch because both hotfixes, 51A and 51B, were published to the main branch. But as I understand it, every subsequent revision, so 51C and so on, will be published to the experimental branch. That was just because A and B followed quickly on the heels of the stable branch publication for stability and playability purposes, and the rest will be experimental, as the name implies. So that's where we stand for now. You'll notice that I'm about half an hour into the playing of this colony, and that's because I recorded an entire episode, and then the file got corrupted, and so let's just pretend that this is my first attempt at this recording. So we can see here, the first building I built was this carpentry, and there's a couple of workbenches in here. I have a crew assigned here. The second building I built here was the kitchen, which now has one functioning oven. Yes. And then the third building I built was the barracks, which I built mainly as a place to store beds. This biome is actually a mixture of several biomes. Three land types, terrain types. There is the tropical forest, a tropical jungle, and also a swamp. So this is a very hot and humid biome. One interesting consequence of these two particular biomes, or three biomes meaning, is that we have multiple types of fowl present. So you get dodos in the forests, and you get jungle fowl in the jungles. When you have a biome with both of them, you will get both of them. So the colony has had lots and lots of poultry. As you can see, I have 10 raw bird in the stockpile. Yes, let's see. As for resources, I've stripped. Unfortunately, this area is pretty poor in terms of logs. I've stripped most of the vegetation already for building materials, which is going to make constructing new things a little bit difficult, to be frank. Most of my timber has come from these giant horsetail plants, and also you can see some bamboo stands here and there. Yeah, that's where all my timber has been coming from. Now, I did start with, also what's going on here? Oh, there's no crew assigned yet to the kitchen. Let's see. So I'm going to pause here for a sec. If we take a look at our crew menu, each one of these lines is a work crew. And there's the overseer of each crew here on the left, and then each of the blank spots here represents a place where an unskilled laborer can be assigned. I don't have any more to assign. I will occasionally get more workers and more overseers as random immigration events, at which point I assign them to work crews and workshops and things. So, underneath the portrait of each crew, you can see the skill that overseer is best at. Now, if I just click on Minerva here, we can see what those different icons mean. Areas like smithing, ceramics, and cooking. Just a quick glance will tell us that no overseer is best at cooking. So just because Minerva Sanderworth happens to be the first name on the work crew list, she is going to get assigned to the kitchen, where it will be her job to cook, here we go, basic food for the colony out of our abundant raw foraged foods. So this biome, or this particular set of biomes, doesn't have a lot of building materials, but it does have a ton of forageables. So we ran earlier in the game. I had my soldiers kill a great number of birds, as you can see in the stockpile. Also, you can probably see there are fungus fields all over the place. So forageables don't last forever, but they can last a good long while, a surprisingly long time. Also, I've been working on making the maize plots function since the beginning. So that was like the second thing I put down after a stockpile. So we've got a steady source of food. And now that the kitchens are going, we'll have a steady source of cooked food. Morale in the colony is not great, and that's just because now we're currently on day 5. In the first couple of days, 2 or 3 days, I only had one building and no beds. So I've been making the construction of cots my priority, and with this great abundance of cots and now the beginning of food production, I'm hoping morale in the colony will get better. So I've been harvesting stone here, and I have my eye on this hematite deposit up here. As soon as it's practical, I'm going to build a mine here, which will probably get me hematite as well as trace amounts of coal, stone, clay, and sand, all of which I need in small amounts for other things, primarily building structures for now. So, I've got some cots in storage. I don't have a dedicated other place to put them right now, so I'm just going to put a couple of cots in the kitchen. One thing I do want to try to avoid in this playthrough is putting too many cots in too many functional workshops. Hang on a second, I've got the wrong menu option there. Furniture. Bed is furniture, there we go. It is kind of convenient if you can put beds in with your workshops, because it means you don't have to build say 2 buildings to house both production and living facilities. However, this tanks the condition of the building. So for those of you not familiar with some of the subsystems of Clockwork Empires, columns' personalities are affected by their working and living conditions. If we click on the carpentry here, for instance, see at the bottom line here, the quality of the carpentry is distasteful. It has a rating of -4. That's a range of -6 all the way up to +6, and it reflects how working there is affecting the colonists. So the carpenters who work in there come out of there with a bad mood, or it makes them unhappy because it's crowded, and basically condition goes down the more modules you have in there. And so in this case, the carpentry has 2 workbenches and 2 cots, which is a total of -4. You can raise that condition by putting in decorative modules. First, it'll hopefully raise it up to 0, and then raise it and continue raising it all the way up to +6, which means people who they really love working in there, and working in there makes them happy. Decorative modules can be constructed in a variety of different places, including in the carpentry itself and also your other functional workshops like the metalsmith and the ceramics workshop and so on. And you can see here there's a selection of various modules and also furniture that the carpentry can make, which have varying amounts of positive influence. Although probably the first place I want to put a nice decoration is here in the barracks, because it is full to brimming with beds, and its condition is horrible, -6. So to do that, I'm going to make I'd like to put a nice carpet in there. Carpet requires 4 bric-a-brac. Bric-a-brac is it's a resource basically that is used only to make decor. It can be made incidentally at any of your various workshops, so not just here at the carpentry, although the carpentry is all I got. So I'm going to say, carpentry, make me some bric-a-brac. Enough bric-a-brac to make a carpet. So this is the end of day 5, I believe. Yep, dusk. And according to most people's work shifts, they stop working before dusk, whatever this shift is. So now they're just milling about and gossiping and so on. So the length of time, the amount of the day that a colonist is willing to work, is determined by his overseer, and the amount of time an overseer is willing to work is determined by his or her happiness. So we can see here Minerva Sanderworth is only willing to work for the first 4 shifts of the day, whereas Zilphia Bildad is willing to work the first 5 shifts of the day. This is because Zilphia, if we take a look at her here, her most prominent emotional state is that of happiness, although something has just made her a little bit angrier, probably the living conditions. Whereas if we take a look at Minerva, for instance, okay, very similar. She's still happier than she is angry, but she's less happy, and for that reason, she is willing to work less, not quite as long. And you'll see, if for some reason things aren't getting done fast enough, there can be multiple reasons. It's too large a job, you don't have enough workers, but it may be that your working conditions are so poor that the overseer is working reduced shifts. The more unhappy they get, the fewer and fewer shifts they work until they work 0 shifts a day and are effectively on strike. at which point you might consider switching out the work crews or, you know, putting a little bit of effort into decorating working conditions so that they're not horrible. Anyway, so that's where the colony stands for now. So the thing that we're working on right now is making bric-a-brac so I can make a carpet so that these barracks aren't a horrible place to sleep, which will in turn raise the morale of people who live in there, which will hopefully increase productivity. In the meantime, I've got the kitchen churning out food. I've got a maize field here churning out corn, or maize, I guess, and the carpentry making assorted things. Let's take a look at the job list. Job list is actually pretty trim. I've been making sure not to assign more jobs than I have colonists to complete. And our military strength is pretty good for a colony our size. 1 overseer and 2 soldiers under his employ. All right, and that's the autosave. So we'll let that fire off. What do we want to build next? Well, oh, I've got a new overseer. Excellent. A colony's duty is to be useful in the motherland. How are we doing for food? Still got plenty of food. And here come the cooks. We have 2 workers incoming. They have injuries among them, having tumbled down a steep cliff some days ago. So, I'm just going to pause here for a second. When you receive immigrants, specifically workers, and this does not apply to overseers, your immigrants may or may not arrive with a number of afflictions. They might arrive with 0 afflictions, for instance, they're perfectly well fed and healthy, etc. Or they may arrive, like these ones did, with injuries, or they may arrive with these like starving condition, having not eaten or not had enough to eat on their way over. This is reflected in their actual character panels, and of course they'll be less effective as workers until they're able to have their injuries tended to. Anyway, I'm going to accept these guys. For instance, Rooster Harwood, one of the new immigrants. It says he's injured. I guess it not yet reflected in his character panel. Alright, let's get these guys assigned to a crew. I'm going to assign, let's see, Iron Chain. Drusilla Iron Chain would probably use one more worker in the field. I'm going to assign you to just this random crew here. And we unpause the game. Alright, so life on the colony continues. Beatrice Sure-Scythe, one of the soldiers under the authority of Jasper Meatswale, has been performing military training. So you'll notice I have soldiers of 2 colored uniforms here, red and brown. The red coats are proper actual soldiers, where the brown soldiers in brown coats are militia. And what that means in terms of game mechanics is that the red soldiers have had proper military training, and they're more effective with their guns. I believe they reload and fire faster, and they benefit from, I believe, damage bonuses when they have a proper military NCO. Your brown-coated soldiers are, they know how to fire a gun, and only military and militia will actually fight, so there's that, but they're not as effective as soldiers. However, given time, militia will train, and we can see here Jasper making Eugenia do push-ups. Here on top of the meat pile, and if we look at Eugenia's memories, she has memories of being engaged in military training. When she has enough of these memories, she will actually get a red coat. She'll become a proper soldier of the colony. So given enough time, your militia will train up into proper soldiers. And one of the side effects of military training is the effects it has on their emotions. And basically it suppresses almost all of their emotions. They are numbed by their military training. Minerva Sanderworth, why aren't you cooking? I mean, there's food waiting to be cooked. She's going to gossip. And is this because she is desperately unhappy with her working conditions? No. This is still in her working period. Oh, she wants to gossip. Well, I guess it's making her happy, but it's making her an ineffective cook. Well, at least her employee, Ivor Steelsteam, is busting his butt cooking up maize chowder. So the colony's pretty stable. I mean, we're gradually clawing our way back to, if not happiness, then at least, you know, satisfactory conditions. Do we have enough bric-a-brac? Nope, we've only got 2, so not enough to make anything good. I'm going to wait on that. Maybe I can consider building another structure. The ceramics workshop makes bricks. I don't have anything that needs bricks right now, so maybe. I do need another place to put beds, though, so I'm going to build a cheapy, lower-class house. So one side effect of building here in the swampy terrain is that it's really hilly here. There's not a lot of flat land, and some of the flat land is actually flooded, so I can't build there. It's forcing me to build my colony in this weird shape. Normally, and for those of you who've watched me in other playthroughs, my colonies develop into this giant ring of buildings which surround the stockpile and the farms. I won't be able to do that. Not without spending a lot of labor, like terraforming the land, flattening it out. And that's labor I could be using to actually build buildings. So I'm just building as the terrain allows, but it means, of course, that it means my colony is going to take a weird shape, and I'll have to live with it. Is what that means. All right, so I've set out the blueprints for a barracks, which will hopefully enable me to have a place to put beds for a fairly long period of time. To complete this building, I'm going to need 12 logs and 4 stone. I have 0 logs in store, although I have 2 bamboo which can be used as timber. I'm still going to have to find a bunch more. Not to mention, of course, the carpentry is consuming consuming timber to keep up the plank stockpile, which in turn is being used to make bric-a-brac. So every time a bric-a-brac is made, it consumes 3 planks, which means that they've used up 1 log somewhere, which means fewer logs because I'm currently at 0. Fewer logs are going into the lower class bunkhouse, so other things I'd better chop down some trees, or horsetail plants as the case may be. But depending what my priorities are, I may actually want to put a hold on the bric-a-brac and plank manufacture, so I'm able to complete the building. Or I can leave it the way it is and let them all get done slowly but simultaneously. So the question becomes, do I want a place to put more beds before I want a way to make my existing beds nicer? On balance, I think my colonists will be okay with less than satisfactory living conditions, because already I have more colonists than I have beds. So I want to be able to build more beds. I think the effect of having insufficient beds will be worse than the effect of having... wait, let me restate that. The effect of having insufficient but nicer beds, will be worse than having sufficient beds that are not quite as nice. So hopefully, when the next day dawns, my colonists will get to chopping some of these trees. I've actually mowed down a lot of the vegetation in the immediate vicinity. I'm going to need a more reliable source of timber. Alright, well, I'm going to have to start chopping down this distant bamboo stand here. Huh. I thought there were more plants in the highlighted area. Nope, turns out it's just a couple of bamboo plants in amongst, like, not useful leafy bushes. That's fine, we'll live with it. We may end up having to trade. So I might have to build a trading house and from through the trading house obtain stone and timber. That's just one example of the way like your terrain choice is going to affect the way your game plays out. For those who are curious, there are different view modes for the buildings. Right here, this mode, they're just always, walls are always visible and you'll never see what's going on inside. This one, transparent walls, no roof. This one, no walls. And this one, where each building will become transparent as you mouse over it. My personal preference is this one. It doesn't look as nice, but I mean, I never look at the roofs anyway, and they just kind of block my view of what's going on inside. We've had a couple of successful maize harvests, so that's nice, and we're about to have another one. So, when this field has seen the input of 100 labor, and 1 labor is basically the length of this progress bar here, then it will output 16 maize. These statistics change depending on the type of crop it is. Some crops require less labor but have a lower output. Some crops, or the converse is true of some of them. Some crops are just blatantly better than others but are limited by the biomes in which they can grow. So for the present biomes, and in this case the swamp forest, it's only possible to plant maize and not cabbage or chilies or any of the other plants. So pick your biomes carefully is what I'm saying. If you really prefer, if you really want a specific crop to grow. And in comes the corn harvest. And Minerva is finally, our head cook has finally deigned to cook some food. Yep, just waiting on those plank deliveries now. Oh, here's a snail. Snails, there was a snail. Swallowed up by the fog of war, snails can also be killed for meat. Basically, any animal you shoot as game can be butchered into raw steak. Except for birds. Birds turn into raw birds instead. But everything else, so aurochs, the giant lizards you might find, I believe even the death worms turn into steak when you slaughter them. Oh, there's Mr. Snail again. There's Zora delivering the bamboo. Still waiting on timber at the bunkhouse. Once this brick, I really ought to cancel. I mean, each bric-a-brac they make is consuming three planks, which is in turn consuming 1 timber, which just means my bunkhouse is getting built more slowly because I'm waiting an increasingly long time for timber. Anyway, maybe that's where we'll leave this episode. So the colony is established. I mean, there haven't been any invasions, no beetles or fishmen or bandits. But we're still struggling to survive. I think our biggest problem right now is the timber shortage. But we've got food production under wraps, and I think we're about to have enough beds for everyone. So hopefully, it's been a bit of a rough time for colony morale, but I think it's getting better. And we'll, I'm sure nothing bad will happen, right? It's Clockwork Empires. So that's where we'll wrap this one up. My name is Alfred. I do these looks at Clockwork Empires about once a month. The game is in early access, so it's not done. Of course, there will be bugs and crashes and things that aren't balanced, but a lot of work has gone into the game quite recently, and it's in pretty good shape, I think. It's being developed by Gaslamp Games, and you can purchase the game on Steam or through the Humble Store, and also through the Gaslamp Games' own website. I hope you found this informative. Feel free to leave a comment or don't, just, this series will be a couple of episodes long. Well, I hope you had fun. I will see you next time.